Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. Good to be back. I do want to talk a little college hoops. And it's funny because this time of the year, I said it on Friday, but this time of the year, in theory, is supposed to be really quiet in college hoops. We have the NBA draft, which I think is kind of a celebration for college hoops as well as an NBA thing. And obviously, in the month prior to the NBA draft, we have kind of the draft deadline. We kind of figure out who's staying, who's going, who's leaving college, who's coming back. And most rosters are set. Recruiting for 2020. The 2022-2023 season, I should say, is certainly done. And so there really isn't all that much really big news. But on the flip side, what I would also say is if you love recruiting on the basketball side, and certainly the football side too, Arch Manning this week, etc. But if you love recruiting on the basketball side, the next few months are going to be really fun. Obviously, the early part of the spring is kind of evaluating who you like, who you don't, who you think would fit, first communication, kids that end up taking visits early in the middle of the spring. And while we're certainly going to have a lot of kids wait until the fall to commit, take campus visits during the school year, to the winter, to maybe even next spring, a lot of kids are going to commit over these next couple weeks. We had Rob Dillingham, five-star point guard, commit to Kentucky on Friday night. And on Saturday, we actually had another really big commitment that really could impact college basketball in the 2023-2024 season. In other words, a kid that is a junior going to be a senior next fall. His name is Layden Blocker. He is a player who spent last year at Sunrise Christian Academy, really good school out there in Kansas. 6'3" guard with a laundry list of offers, especially he's from Arkansas, and really most of the SEC was after this kid. Auburn he had an offer from Auburn. He had an offer from Alabama. He had an offer from Oklahoma, which is obviously a Big 12 school, soon to be SEC, and of course his home state, Arkansas Razorbacks. Well, on Saturday, he made his college announcement. He came back to Little Rock to make his college announcement, and drum roll, please. Guys love that drum roll, don't you? Layden Blocker, high 4-star. I believe he'll soon to be a 5-star guard. He commits to the University of Arkansas. How about them Razorbacks? Woo pig suey. The big pig invasion is here. And so what I would say, let's get into this really fun player. And man, oh man, you talk about a school, a program, a coaching staff that is on a recruiting roll. I don't know if there's a hotter brand in college basketball right now than the Arkansas Razorbacks. We'll get into that in a minute. But first of all, let's get into the player. I think he's a really talented player. He's about 6'3", can play on the ball, can play off the ball. He's a combo guard, about a top 25 or so prospect right now, who I really believe that in time is going to evolve into a 5-star, a player that I was talking to my buddy Jackson Collier, who covers Arkansas. I don't want to take credit for this, but he said that Layden Blocker is the kind of kid, the advanced metrics love him. You watch the games, you see what he does, you see what he doesn't do, but when you actually break down the stats, he is maybe even better than we think, and probably a guy that I think is a 5-star, maybe a McDonald's All-American by the end of the year. As I said, 6'3", hyper athletic, and when I watch him play, he reminds me of an Eric Musselman type, right? We all got a type in life. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And after watching Coach Muss for all these years, dating back to Nevada, now at Arkansas, oh baby, does he have a type. You got to be quick. You got to be athletic. You got to play it. You got to play on both ends of the floor. You got to compete defensively. But to me, and I've never talked to Coach Muss about this, but I believe that you, especially in the SEC, you have to have kind of that elite level athleticism. You can't hide players in the SEC, and Layden Blocker is a kid at 6'3", 6'4", that I believe will be able to step into the SEC, probably closer to 6'2", 6'3". I think I said 6'3", 6'4", but 6'2", 6'3". Will be able to play in the SEC, and athletically, he will be able to compete with anybody. Again, a guy that gets after it on both ends of the floor. It's really funny. Coach Muss has told he said in interviews, a kid like Jordan Walsh, who's part of this class of 2022, the number 2 ranked class in the country, which we're going to get into in a minute, he is a violent defender. I don't know if Layden Blocker is a violent defender, but plays really hard, good anticipation, and again, Coach Muss at this point, he's got a type. If you don't have that elite level athleticism and the ability to use it on both ends of the floor, you aren't going to play very much for the Arkansas Razorbacks. With that said, let's get into the bigger picture because really good player. And I think really to me, it says two things about Arkansas. One, they are very much in a very short amount of time under Eric Musselman, they have become a recruiting destination for elite players, and that's something I don't think any of us could have imagined 4 or 5 years ago prior to Coach Muss's arrival. But two, I also think this program is really set up in the long term. So to go back to the recruiting stuff, listen, I think, like I said to lead this segment, when you talk about the rising brands in college basketball right now, there's established brands. Duke's awesome, Kentucky's awesome, Gonzaga's awesome, UCLA's awesome. But when you talk about rising brands in college basketball, I don't know that there's anybody quite like Arkansas. And listen, what I think is interesting about the Layden Blocker commitment is this. I think it really establishes Arkansas even further as a recruiting destination for elite players. A place that you can go as an elite player and in a year or two be NBA ready. And it's interesting, right? Because some would say this is Coach Muss's fourth full recruiting class at Arkansas. In 2020, he had one of the elite classes in the country. Moses Moody was obviously the headliner in that class. Devo Davis, who's still on campus. Jalen Williams. But to me, what I would say about that is this. I talked about it last week with the Louisville football program all of a sudden getting hot in recruiting. In recruiting, there are two reasons why a team has real success in recruiting completely out of the blue if they historically haven't. Why I question Louisville is because they didn't fit either one of those criteria, and those criteria are you're either coming off a really great season, like, say, Michigan State football right now, incredible 11-win season, they're recruiting really well, or you have a first-year coach and a first-year staff that really gets after it and establishes it and is trying to change the culture. So when you go back to that 2020 class, what I think a lot of people would say is new coaching staff, we got to keep our best players home, and they did that with 4 elite players out of the state of Arkansas, but we've seen first-year head coaching staffs sign good classes before. It has happened. 2021, not as much of a high school influence, more of the transfer portal. And then in 2022, you have this historic recruiting class that I have talked so much about. We don't need to break down 2022 because we're on to 2023. But in 2022, you have 3 McDonald's All-Americans who we've talked about plenty. Jordan Walsh, Anthony Black, and of course Nick Smith Jr. You also have 3 other top 100 players. Barry Dunning, Darian Ford, and Joseph Pinion. And so why I'm bringing it all up, because to get to 2023, what strikes me is this. A lot of coaching staffs have had a great recruiting class in their first year as a head coach. A lot of staffs have had success in recruiting coming off of a super successful season. So in 2022, you're obviously recruiting off the first Elite Eight that Arkansas had in 2021. So it's not inconceivable that you would have a great recruiting class there. I know Arkansas is again coming off an Elite Eight, but I bring it up because we are now talking about 3 elite recruiting classes potentially in 4 years with Eric Musselman as a head coach. Obviously, 2023 is early. This is the first kid committed for 2023, but they're very much in the mix for 5-star Ron Allen. They're very much in the mix for the kid Bay Fall, who's a 5-star. And so I just bring it up because if you start talking about 3 elite classes in 4 years, that's not a coincidence. That is a recruiting juggernaut, and that is an airtight recruiting pitch, something that we've talked about on this show before, and we've talked to, I think I've talked to recruits about it, I've talked to parents about it. When you go to Arkansas, it's not just you're playing in the SEC, you're this, you're that. It's the idea that this is how we're going to use you. This is how you're going to get ready. This is how we are going to get you ready for the NBA. And Coach Muss's track record speaks for itself with, obviously, again, Moses Moody, a first-round pick, now an NBA champion, Jalen Williams with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and what should be many, many, many recruits coming out next year that could be, I think we could have 3 first-rounders from Arkansas in the 2023 NBA draft. Finally, what I would say is it's not just that Arkansas is recruiting at an elite level, but I think this particular commitment, it now speaks to the idea that we're really building something here for the super long haul. This isn't just, this isn't just a great Elite Eight run in the 2021 NCAA tournament in that bubble. It's not even back-to-back Elite Eight runs. But now you have a consensus top 10. I have them as a top 5 team coming into 2022-2023. This is the Arkansas Razorbacks. And now you start to see what the foundation of 2023, 2024 could be. And I know that in this world that we live in the transfer portal era, it's impossible to project rosters out a year in advance, especially with a place like Arkansas where you could have 3, I think even 4 or 5 NBA players. Probably 3 guys are definitively going pro next year. But you start to look at what Arkansas could look like a year from now. I mean, let's think about it. We know you're going to lose Anthony Black, Nick Smith Jr., and of course, on top of that, Jordan Walsh almost certainly. But as I said, if you can retain those 3 top 100 players that are not getting as much hype, Barry Dunning, Darian Ford, who I've seen in person, I think he's a really good player, and Joseph Pinion. You got 3 top 100 players in 2023, 2024 who are going to be sophomores. A couple of these transfers who came in should be back. Jalen Graham has a chance to be really good, Trevon Brazile, and Ricky Council. And now you're starting to build another monster class for 2023, 2024, headlined by Layden Blocker. I'm just telling you, this program is built for the short term. This program is built for the long term. They are recruiting at an elite level. They're starting, we talk in football all the time about starting to stack elite classes on top of each other. And some of these guys are going to leave after 1 year. But some of them are going to stay for a year 2, a year 3, like a Devo Davis who's going into his junior year now. Some guys are going to whatever. But now you start recruiting and you're bringing in young guys that are going to walk into a culture of winning and established culture. I just think this is huge for Arkansas and a great way to start the high school class of 2023 as Layden Blocker, 4-star guard, has committed to Arkansas. I think he'll be a 5-star when it's all said and done. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube channel. Also, make sure you're following on social media at Aaron_Torres on Twitter. Make sure to follow our Arkansas-specific page, Torres on the Hogs, and also make sure you're following on Instagram, Aaron Torres Pod.